Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Mona Flores, and I'm very excited to be with you here today. As the global head of medical AI at NVIDIA, I get asked the why question a lot. Why is a cardiothoracic surgeon working at NVIDIA? And the answer, at least to me, is very obvious and very clear. AI is changing the world, and AI will be changing medicine, and I want to be part of that change. So without further ado, let's start. I'd love to begin by showing you a short video of AI in healthcare. Enjoy.
I am a healer, bringing clarity to our most important questions.
Diabetic retinopathy can happen if blood sugar stays too high over a long period of time.
And comfort in times of uncertainty.
What procedure am I having today?
You are having a bronchoscopy.
Shining a light on a path forward.
You gotta get an OR.
And finding answers when every second counts. I am watching over our frontline heroes, creating a safer place to do their life-saving work, guiding them to faster answers, and delivering care wherever it's needed. I am opening new worlds of discovery and mapping new treatments for every individual, creating a community to collaborate with thousands and sharing knowledge that can heal millions. I am AI, brought to life by NVIDIA and brilliant healers everywhere.
So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's actually one of my favorites. To me, it brings home the point that AI is one of the most important players in healthcare technology today. Since 2012, we've pushed the boundaries of AI research and development. Now, these capabilities are converging. They're opening an exciting future for interactive AI applications that will change our lives. When it comes to using AI, medicine has traditionally lagged behind. But this is changing. We are seeing increased applications and adoption of AI in medicine, whether in clinical care, in operational efficiency, or even in drug discovery. 2020 was a breakthrough year coupling methods of AI and HPC together to speed up drug discovery, driving a huge jump in computational demand to more than 10 petaflops across R&D organizations. And we are just beginning this AI journey. And while AI is affecting each of the processes around drug discovery, AI is not just for drug discovery. AI is widening access to healthcare and decreasing medical mistakes, which leads to better outcomes, which translates into lower costs, which leads back to widening access. So as you see, it's a virtuous cycle that benefits healthcare. Unfortunately, this is not lost on anyone, and especially on world leaders today. For instance, in the US, President Biden recently proposed the establishment of ARPA-H, which stands for the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. He did this to speed research that can improve the health of all Americans. With a requested annual funding level of $6.5 billion, ARPA-H will be tasked with building high-risk, high-reward capabilities and platforms to drive biomedical breakthroughs, ranging from molecular to societal, that would provide transformative solutions for all patients. Looking forward, such initiatives, I'm sure, will become more common, with more private and more public sector investments into AI for healthcare. AI is the path to precision medicine, from intelligent instruments to improved outcomes. Digital data in all shapes and sizes is growing exponentially. According to the National Security Agency in the US, the internet is processing 1,826 petabytes of data per day. And data from medical instruments and other data such as that from DNA sequencing, from liquid biopsies, pathology, genomics, and cryo-electron microscopy will dwarf the data that we have today from YouTube and Twitter and what have you combined. In 2011, digital information grew 9 times in volume in just 5 years. And by 2020, its amount in the world is expected to reach 35 trillion gigabytes. The high demand of exploring and analyzing such big data has encouraged the use of data-hungry machine learning algorithms like deep learning. So deep learning has gained huge success in a wide range of applications like computer games, speech recognition, computer vision, natural language processing, self-driving cars, and others. It is only fair to say that deep learning is changing our everyday life. And while each instrument, each modality, each domain will have some more narrow AI, the path to precision medicine is the integration of all of this data for a broader AI. But why is AI so different than yesterday's software? It is because AI is the software that actually writes software, literally. Take, for instance, the newly released beta version of OpenAI's Codex system. With Codex, a developer can just say things in English, give a natural language prompt, like, for instance, make a user interface with 10 buttons, and Codex will automatically generate code, computer code, that does this. But it's also capable of writing much more sophisticated software than this. So imagine all the possibilities. You too can be a game developer today. In AI, we have horizontal capabilities that go across all domains, and we have vertical capabilities specific to a particular domain. With the explosion of digital data, the advancements in compute capabilities, and the novel mind-blowing algorithms, we now can build domain-specific applications, needle-moving applications for every aspect of healthcare, from radiology to cardiology to genomics to pathology. In fact, very recently, the FDA approved a new AI application from a startup called Page AI to assist pathologists in reading the pathology slides for prostate cancer. The clinical trial behind this showed that this prostate application improved detection of cancer on an individual slide image by 7.3% on average when compared to pathologists' unassisted reads. Now, this is the first such application, the first FDA-approved application for pathology, but more will follow for sure. And what makes this possible is domain-specific AI computing platforms. So where does NVIDIA come into play here? NVIDIA is a computing platform company innovating across the full stack, from chips to applications, at data center scales and in domains ranging all the way from graphics to scientific computing to AI to robotics. We offer our platform in 3 layers. The first layer is the hardware layer. It consists of chips and systems. The second layer, algorithms, libraries, APIs, SDKs. The third layer and the top layer is applications, services, AI skills, and frameworks. And healthcare domain-specific platform is what we actually envisioned when we built Clara. Clara is our computing platform for the healthcare domain, and it is named after Clara Barton, who founded the American Red Cross in 1881. But why do we need a healthcare-specific computing platform like Clara, for instance? Because the delivery of healthcare, as you know, is extremely complex, with healthcare staff often needing to make decisions in real time at the drop of a hat. Data is coming to us from all angles, from health records, from medical imaging instruments, from lab tests, from surgical procedures, patient monitors, and hospitals are generating 50 petabytes of data each year from medical instruments and health IT systems. Add to all of that that there's not one hospital that is the same. There's not one healthcare practice that is the same. There is definitely not one patient that is the same. With all of the diseases and all the illnesses that we have today, we have no cure for them, ongoing and future pandemics. With all of that, we are looking for AI to help. Healthcare-specific computing platforms like NVIDIA Clara, like our open source healthcare platform Monai, which is the backbone of Clara, they put healthcare AI within reach. Clara and Monai provide tools to build, adapt, deploy AI-based workflows. They are a set of libraries, pre-trained models like the COVID models that we developed with the NIH. They are application frameworks. They are reference applications to accelerate the development of healthcare applications. These platforms today, and other platforms similar to them, power AI that is being used today to advance computational genomics, biomedical and clinical NLP, imaging, intelligent instruments, computational drug discovery, and even smart hospitals. Now let's look at specific examples of AI in healthcare. So as genomic sequencing costs decreased and newer, more efficient sequences came to the market, projects like the Million Vet Program, for instance, became possible. But the amount of data that is associated with these programs is staggering, and analyzing it is getting more complex by the day, if not the hour. Today, there are AI computational frameworks supporting genomics applications from DNA all the way to RNA. NVIDIA Parabricks is one such application. It is a complete portfolio of off-the-shelf solutions coupled with a toolkit to support new application development to address the needs of genomics labs. It is accelerating analytics across this entire genomic workflow, from sequencing all the way to variant calling and to tertiary analysis. And while faster analysis of genetic data is certainly helpful for understanding diseases, discovering therapies and drugs to combat disease is an incredibly complex problem. The pharmaceutical industry has major challenges, from high development costs to long development times and very low success rates. Drug discovery today is a multidisciplinary endeavor that today takes more than 10 years and fails almost 90% of the time. AI is an invaluable drug discovery tool to shorten this process. Over the last couple of decades, we have made tremendous progress in digitizing biology, building computational methods for simulating biology and chemistry. And in the process, we unleashed an avalanche of biomedical data. Today, the world is able to produce more data in 3 months than in the last 300 years combined. Understanding this vast data is a computational problem with massive complexity that can benefit from AI and from transformers. But what are transformers? Transformers are a type of neural network architecture that is proving to be extremely useful. They are developed to solve the problem of neural machine translation. That means any task that transforms an input sequence to an output sequence, kind of like when in the codex application earlier we said you give it human language and it produces computer code. These transformer-based neural network architectures, they have become available in the last couple of years, but they are very skilled at learning the language of many diverse data types using unsupervised learning. Now we're talking unlabeled data sets. After pre-training, then they can be fine-tuned to a specific task using supervised learning and using specific labeled data sets. Transformers have superhuman capabilities in tasks like translation, summarization, language generation, patient cohort creation, Q&A. Think chatbots, think call center support systems. You can also use these models for creating new drugs, for protein folding, for image analysis. They can predict the protein structure from an amino acid sequence. And some pharma companies are already using these models today to come up with drugs at unprecedented speed. Take in silico medicine, for instance. They actually were one of the pioneers of these methods. And recently, they were able to develop a novel preclinical drug for idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis using these generative models. And most recently, transformers are being used for even back for imaging. They are being used for image generation and analysis, like, for instance, the UNETR model for organ segmentation. To build these models, NVIDIA created Megatron. Megatron is a framework purpose-built to train giant transformer models. This is done across multiple GPUs, across multiple nodes, with fast data loading and fast unloading and scheduling. It basically uses every accelerated computing invention that NVIDIA has today. Megatron reduces training time so we can train huge models with equally huge unlabeled datasets. So Megatron helps us build these models, but where do we actually build them? Recently, we inaugurated Cambridge One, which is the fastest AI supercomputer in the UK, providing a sandbox for experiments at unprecedented scale. Cambridge One has 80 NVIDIA DGX A100s and 400 petaflops of AI compute. And this is where MegaMolBART, the most recent chemistry NLP transformer model, was trained. This was done by AstraZeneca. And MegaMolBART understands the language of chemistry and makes possible the generation of drug molecules that it has never seen before. Here's a short video clip that describes how MegaMolBART works.
The incorporation of AI and deep learning is accelerating what has traditionally been a time-consuming step. Next, we will discuss a state-of-the-art deep learning model used in lead optimization. Transformer-based deep learning models have shown tremendous promise in biomedical research and drug discovery. These uses include protein structure prediction, generative chemistry, biomedical NLP, and molecular diagnostics. Today, we will be discussing an example from generative chemistry. MegaMolBART is a transformer-based generative model utilizing the NVIDIA Megatron framework, which has been developed in collaboration with AstraZeneca. MegaMolBART was trained using millions of commercially available compounds from Zinc-15, a database built specifically for virtual screening. Running on powerful GPU-based hardware such as an NVIDIA DGX SuperPod, MegaMolBART is deployable within Clara Discovery and can quickly generate novel molecules for further investigation. These results, generated using AI that understands millions of molecules, increase the probability of successful downstream experiments. Let's explore the results of a virtual screen that identified hits from the Chembl database predicted to bind to 3-chymotrypsin-like protease, a SARS-CoV-2 drug target. We'll look at how NVIDIA's rapid suite of software libraries can cluster molecules by similarity in just a few seconds. The molecules represented here were first featurized by calculating Morgan fingerprints, which are a binary vector representing the molecule. Next, RAPIDS was used to reduce the dimensionality of the data with PCA and UMAP. And finally, K-means was applied for cluster assignment. The UMAP projection of the Chembl compounds is shown in the plot, with colors corresponding to cluster identity. Compounds identified in the virtual screen are plotted with large diamonds. They are also shown in the table, where columns with molecular properties can be added and removed. Next, 2 hits from the SARS-CoV-2 virtual screen are selected, and MegaMolBART infers 5 compounds between them in the molecular latent space it has learned. In this table, the compounds selected from the screen are shown at the top and bottom. The 5 generated compounds are in between. These new compounds are novel AI-generated molecules which can be prioritized for further study by scientists and researchers. The Cheminformatics Search and MegaMolBART Clara Discovery modules will be available on NGC.
So as you just saw, MegaMolBot is great for chemistry. But how about models that understand medical language, that understand doctor speak, if you may? We recently partnered with the University of Florida and Florida Health to put up HyperGator AI. HyperGator AI surpassed Cambridge 1 with 140 DGXs, DGX A100s, and 700 now petaflops of AI compute. This is the fastest US supercomputer for AI today. HyperGator AI is the compute foundation for building all sorts of healthcare applications, including Gatortron. So like MegaMolBot, Gatortron is a transformer model, but instead of chemistry, it understands clinical language. Gatortron was pre-trained on the last 10 years of electronic health records from the University of Florida and Florida Health that contains over 300 million unstructured clinical notes from 2 million patients. This allowed us to create the world's largest clinical model at 3.9 billion parameters, achieving state-of-the-art performance on a variety of benchmarks, such as named entity recognition, question answering, clinical semantic similarity search. It even beat the University of Florida's own existing engineered de-identification task. NVIDIA DGX and Megatron have put this capability of building language models within reach of every medical center today. Learning the language of these specific institutions and fine-tuning on their own labeled datasets has unlimited healthcare applications, from matching patients to life-saving clinical trials, to predicting patient complications, to physician decision support. But let us not forget that even before NLP and all of its promise, AI was already changing medicine, and medical instruments were at the center of this. Today, we have incredibly capable sensor technology. This has allowed to benefit from the most important R&D breakthroughs to aid in the practice of medicine. We see this in devices today that can, one, detect arrhythmias through our phones and watches. They can also do precise localization of disease for tumor ablation procedures, where real-time processing and visualization is key. We see it in more sophisticated CT scanners and ultrasound machines and endoscopes and MRI scanners. Take, for instance, the new mobile MRI from Hyperfine. This is a mobile scanner that you can push next to a patient in the ICU, or even perhaps load it on a helicopter and maybe take it to a field hospital. Imagine how this can change battlefield medicine and how you can take better care of soldiers injured on the field. Most of these devices have embedded GPUs that allow them to do AI on the edge. But they also can communicate with data centers, and they can communicate with the cloud. So besides intelligent instruments, we now have AI applications that enable us to deliver faster and faster imaging via software. Let's take medical imaging such as PET scans and MRIs, which range in duration from 30 minutes to more than an hour and can be pretty uncomfortable for patients. AI is changing that. Today, there's a company called Subtle Medical that has 2 FDA-cleared solutions that cut the exam time to a quarter of its original time, while still retaining the original image quality. Their brain MRI product, Subtle MRI, not only reduces the scan time, but uses also only 10% of the contrast material that was previously needed. And then we have AI that can enable virtual biopsies. At the Mayo Clinic, researchers were looking at glioblastoma, a form of brain cancer. They are studying imaging biomarkers and imaging genomic signature, if you may, that can differentiate between the different kinds of glioblastomas without having to study the specific mutation under the microscope. What does that mean? It means that now we can start treatment without having to go and do surgery and take a brain biopsy from the patient. A game changer. We also have other AI-infused software that allows for earlier detection of disease. For example, there's an application from a company called IDX which is actually FDA approved to diagnose if a patient has diabetic retinopathy, which, as you know, if not detected and treated in time, can cause blindness. But depending on where you live, you might not be able to see an ophthalmologist to get a diagnosis in time. So IDX changes that. Today, thanks to AI and IDX, the diagnosis can be done automatically at the primary physician's office or even at your local drugstore. And we have AI for early detection of heart disease. So until recently, the gold standard for diagnosing blockages in the arteries of your heart was to go and get an invasive procedure called an angiogram. Heart flow is changing this whole classical paradigm of treating a heart disease. Before, if there was any suspicion of coronary artery disease, the patient would get a stress test to determine if they have any signs of this. And then following that, they would have to go and get this invasive angiogram. And following the angiogram, then we could decide on a treatment, whether it's a stent or surgery or what have you. With heart flow, now you can skip both of these tests in elective cases. And again, this is just in elective cases today. And you can get a CT scan. And from that CT scan, you can determine the best treatment course directly. There's also AI that can help in triage. So think of radiologists who are having to read hundreds of scans a day. Now, instead of a work list being generated by time or by place of study, you can have an FDA-cleared AI application from ADOC that is always running in the background that suggests a priority list for reading these imaging studies that is based on the findings of the study as determined by AI and not by the time the study came in. But it doesn't stop here. How about helping surgeons get better results? Caliber AI is one such company. Their first product is helping orthopedic surgeons during arthroscopic shoulder surgery. Not only do they identify structures on a small field of vision, now you don't have to go panning in and out all the time to be able to see these structures, but it also quantifies some of the measurements that are needed in such surgeries, such as perhaps the percent of bone defect in this shoulder socket and other measurements. And of course, we also have AI algorithms that make possible the production of dashboards to follow disease trends over time and geography, like the one released by Johns Hopkins University during this pandemic. I'm sure we've all seen that. Such dashboards can be and are powered by AI. AI applications continue to expand to address all sorts of needs, from caring for aging populations to allocation of scarce resources, to managing pandemics, to reducing costs. For example, after a fall in the hospital, mortality risk increases significantly, especially in elderly patients and especially in female elderly patients. This delays discharge significantly, costing up to $35,000 in additional costs. And healthcare delivery is increasingly more challenging, with hospitals and clinics having to do more with less resources. With COVID-19, the system was stretched to its limits. Scarce healthcare workers became even scarcer. According to the CDC, 9,300 healthcare workers in the US alone contracted COVID-19 in the first 2 months of this pandemic from exposure to patients, from direct exposure to patients. AI is helping solve these problems by making sense of sensor data. Smart sensors, such as cameras and speakers, can act as eyes and ears to ensure safety and operational excellence of healthcare facilities, as well as advanced care for patients. And smart sensors to measure for fever or compliance with protective gear, smart sensors to monitor crowds and evaluate social distancing, and to interact with high-risk patients. All of this can keep both patients and staff safe and informed. And one of the latest additions to the AI world in healthcare, which can be used to train all of the algorithms and power all of the applications I just spoke about today, is federated learning. Healthcare environments are continuously changing, and healthcare data is spread all over the world. To build robust AI applications, which need a lot of data, we need to adapt to the changing environment and learn from diverse data and a large amount of data. We need an AI training framework that can live on the edge and learn from data at local sites. Federated learning does exactly that. But what is federated learning? I see it simply as a game of hide and seek. You hide the data, but you seek the knowledge. Hide and seek. You are able to train an AI model from distributed data without having to centralize the data, without needing to see the data, without ever having access to the data. In September of 2021, we published in Nature Medicine the largest real-life clinical federated learning study to date. How did this come about? In the past year, and spurred by the pandemic and everyone's desire to help, we embarked on a collaboration with 20 different hospitals around the world using federated learning to help in triaging patients with symptoms suspicious of COVID. Let's watch a short video here that summarizes this study.
In 2020, COVID-19 introduced an unprecedented challenge to the world. As hospital beds filled and resources like ventilators and medical staff stretched thin, that challenge became a crisis. An urgent response was needed, and it called for the combined efforts of the world's research and healthcare communities. But how can researchers in different hospitals work together to anticipate shortages in critical resources to better meet patient needs? The answer is AI-powered Nvidia Federated Learning. Nvidia partnered with Mass General Brigham to develop an AI model that could predict the oxygen needs of patients with COVID-19 symptoms. To maximize the model's accuracy and benefit as many patients as possible, they turned to Nvidia Federated Learning. How does it work? Federated Learning lets multiple institutions collaborate on AI model training, helping them develop more accurate models than they could on their own. By leveraging diverse datasets, the volume and quality of data is increased. And because only model parameters, not the data itself, are shared with the centralized server, data privacy is preserved. 20 institutions from across the globe joined the initiative. The results? A 16% improvement of the average performance measured across all participating sites, and an average increase of 38% in generalizability when compared to models trained at any single site. The model was further tested at 3 hospitals independent from the original 20 institutions, and the results were exceptional. For predicting ventilator need within 24 hours of a patient's arrival in the ER, the model achieved a sensitivity of 95% and a specificity of over 88%. This is the first step toward future clinical deployment. This study showed that federated learning is a powerful tool that can build globally robust AI models without sharing data. Critical industries, from energy to financial services to manufacturing, can use it to maximize the benefits of AI. To learn more about federated learning, visit the link in this video's description.
Federated learning is being used today to develop solutions not only in clinical care, but also in medical device instruments, in pharmaceutical companies. Actually, one pharma company, Bayer, recently finished a pilot study in federated learning in the hopes of using it to scale their R&D efforts and to develop new digital business models for them. And federated learning is not just for pharma. Other industries, from automotive to energy to finance, will benefit from using federated learning. So it is for medicine and beyond. So as you see, AI is augmenting our abilities, and with new training paradigms, platforms, and competing methods, it will revolutionize healthcare delivery and get us to the holy grail, precision medicine. So as President Barack Obama simply said, you wouldn't give everyone with a broken arm the same cast, and people who need glasses aren't all wearing the same prescription. So let me ask you, why are we still doing today exactly that? Why are we treating our most vulnerable patients, our sickest patients, like they're all the same? Precision medicine is a must. and AI will get us there. Thank you.